Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our brand new AI series, The Power of AI in Recruitment and Sourcing in 2023. And I'm really excited that today's at our first edition, we're going to have Erin Mathew here, Senior Talent Sourcer at PayPal. And the goal of this webinar series is to give you real, tangible knowledge and learnings that you can use in your day-to-day activities. My name is Adrian Kolf, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Matcher. I'm also an investor in HR tech, public speaker, but most importantly, I am your host for the next 6 series. Now, before I introduce Erin, let me tell you a little bit more about what we do with Matcher. Because with Matcher, we provide dedicated sourcing and recruitment teams to startups, scale-ups, and corporates, whatever their hiring needs are. Our sourcers and recruiters work fully embedded into teams of clients like Miro, Grammarly, TikTok, Booking, Revolut, Stripe, and we help them with their hiring needs. So if you have any hiring needs or you would like some advice, please reach out because we would love to get in touch with you. Now, please welcome on stage Erin Mathew.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me back.
Yes. It's been what, like 2 years ago since the last time you were at our webinar series?
Yes, at least 2 years. And I was talking about Reddit back then, and I still source on Reddit, but now I'm doing a lot more with AI.
And so excited to have you back because things have definitely evolved since 2 years ago, right?
Oh, a whole lot.
Hey, Erin, for you, what was kind of like your aha moments when AI really started to play a role in your day-to-day work?
Yeah, so admittedly, I was kind of scared of trying ChatGPT the first time that it came out in November of 2022. And really, what my aha moment was realizing that this is a tool that will allow me to really kind of streamline a lot of the administrative tasks that I do within my role, like something as simple as candidate outreach. I can spend a lot more time editing messages of existing drafts versus having to think up the entire thing from scratch. And it's really saved me a lot of time. And I'm really hopeful that I can give some tangible tips to everyone today to do the same.
Awesome. And I am definitely in that boat of like, whoa, what is happening? So curious to learn from you. And Erin, before I give you the stage, I want to make 2 quick announcements. First, I really want to thank our sponsors, Jobbing Cloud and MetaView, for making this webinar series possible. And then secondly, on the 2nd of November, we organize TRC, the biggest tech recruitment conference of the Benelux. And we both have tickets for offline to be there in person, but we also still have tickets to join online. And the experience is honestly a great online experience. If you subscribe to our newsletter, you will be sent a 20% discount code to buy the tickets. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to our newsletter and you'll be sent a discount code that you can do to buy the ticket for the 2nd of November. All right, Erin, Let's get back to our session. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you everybody once again for joining in for my session. Today, the topic is Beyond the Hype, Real World AI Usage for Sourcers and Recruiters. I'll start off by telling you a little bit about who I am. I am married with a 1.5-year-old son, and I have 2 dogs as well. And we live in Asheville, North Carolina, out in the mountains. It's very beautiful out here. And I currently work for PayPal as a senior talent sourcer. So today, the agenda, we're going to cover the very basics of AI. We'll also go into prompt engineering with a quick tutorial. And then we also want to dive into understanding biases that exist within AI. And I'll also be dropping some tools and resources that can take your AI journey even further. So what I want to emphasize about this session is that we're not going to do anything, too complicated or too advanced when it comes to AI. This session really is to set you up for success for the next several weeks of this series so that you have a great starting point with all of the basics. So I also want you to keep your phones close by. I will have a few QR codes that you can scan for some of the resources that I'll be talking about through this presentation so that you can kind of keep them for later to go into further detail. And before we start talking about integrating AI into your workflow, you might want to check into what your employer's policy is around AI because this is kind of a situation where some companies haven't quite caught up yet to AI technology. So you want to make sure that you're not violating any policies by using any of these tools or how you're using them. So first and foremost, it's a pretty good guideline to not use any proprietary content or data within the prompts that we use for these language models. You have to kind of understand that with these tools being open source, at any point your prompts could become public. And then just a personal suggestion, it may not be the best to use your work email to sign up for an account with any of these tools as well. I think it's just a little bit safer to use a personal email in this case. So let's start from the very, very basics. What is AI? AI, or artificial intelligence, is a technology that mimics human intelligence to some extent. And that's the key phrase right here. It's never going to fully mimic human intelligence. It enables machines to learn, adapt, and perform tasks that typically require human thinking. And it does this by processing and analyzing data, finding patterns, and making decisions or recommendations based on that information. So just to give you kind of an industry overview, there's a lot of modern applications of AI that you may not have known about that are outside of talent acquisition. And these are just a couple that I found personally interesting. There are video gaming companies that are actually using AI to create NPCs, or non-playable characters. So for example, maybe if you play World of Warcraft, you see a lot of characters that are running around in different areas of the game that are not being played by other people online, but are instead created artificially by the game developers. And I think that that's a very interesting application of this, because the better that AI gets, the better those characters can be to mimic human behavior. In healthcare, predictive analytics are being used for controlling disease outbreaks. Farming. I never thought that I would hear that AI is being used in farming, but they are using precision farming methods to determine optimal watering, planting, and harvesting, as well as plant disease detection, which is primarily done through image analyzation. And then banks and the fintech industry are using fraud detection to identify irregular transaction patterns. So just a couple of interesting points to think about. So the world of AI, obviously we hear the buzzwords mostly around ChatGPT, but there is a whole world and a whole ecosystem of AI products out there, anything from speech to text to video, for coding and research. I just kind of want to give you a visualization of how big generative AI really is. So most of what we're going to cover today is going to be related to AI language models. We're going to talk today a little bit about Bard, ChatGPT, and Bing AI. These are all built on large databases and algorithms to create a technology called natural language processing. So what is NLP, or natural language processing? You know how we as humans can read a book or text our friends or have a conversation and understand not just the words, but also the meaning and sentiment behind them. Natural language processing aims to give computers a similar ability to be able to read the data and to understand the language and then come to their own conclusions. So you actually use natural language processing in your everyday life without even knowing it. If you've ever used autocorrect on a text message, that is actually a form of natural language processing. So let's take a little bit of a high-level overview on ChatGPT versus Bard versus Bing AI. I've often been asked which one is better, which one is the best. And it really kind of depends on what you're looking for and what you're looking to do. Obviously, ChatGPT, it has two different versions. There's ChatGPT 3.0 and ChatGPT 4. 3.5 is the free version of this. And the data cutoff date of the knowledge that it has is September 2021. And then ChatGPT 4 has a cutoff date of January 2022. And this is the paid version of that language model. So some of the drawbacks of ChatGPT are obviously the inaccuracies that can occur due to that data cutoff date. So when we're talking about other language models like Bard, which is done through Google, you're able to get some information that is tied to real-time Google search results. And this is also a language model that is free. One of the really neat features that I like about Bard is the output after you put into the prompt. It gives you multiple drafts to choose from. And it's a little bit more accurate than ChatGPT because of the real-time results that are tied to it. And then finally, Bing Chat, that is also tied to a search engine. So it's tied to Bing search results. But one thing to note is it is built on the OpenAI platform, which is similar to ChatGPT. It is free. One of the drawbacks is that you have to run it in an Edge browser versus a Chrome browser or any other type of browser. And then one really neat thing about this, which is why I kind of prefer it for when I'm doing research, is that it actually it cites the sources of where it generated its answer for the output. So very neat. So how can we use AI within talent acquisition? These are just three methods that I'm going to cover today. This is not all encompassing of all the uses that we can use in AI. There are so many, but if I went into all of them in this hour, I think that, it might be a bit overwhelming. So today we're just going to talk about candidate messaging, learning and research, writing job descriptions and interview questions, and creating video content. So we won't be able to do a whole lot around video content, but it's more to introduce you to what the capabilities of that are. So everything starts with writing an effective prompt. As I mentioned before, I was a person that was very hesitant to use AI when ChatGPT was first rolled out. And when I started getting into it, my first impression was, oh, I wrote a prompt and I got the most bland and generic output. Why am I afraid that this thing is going to take my job? It turns out that being able to craft an effective prompt is what generates a more human and effective and engaging output. So I realized that there was a whole lot more to it than just asking simple questions of this language model. So what is a prompt? Let's break this down. It's an input or instruction given to the model, which is used to generate an output. So if you're a sourcer, I want you to think of writing a prompt like relearning Boolean. It's really not too dissimilar from Boolean. So don't be afraid to try multiple iterations in order to have a trial and error of being able to get the output that you want. So just like we can change the output of a Boolean string using characters and commands, we can use certain refinements to change the output of a prompt. So I created just a very basic cheat sheet of how you can alter a prompt in order to get a more detailed and rich answer from a language model. This is not an all-encompassing list. There are far more that you can use, but I'm just going to keep it very simple. We can use things like tone, style. For example, write a candidate outreach email in the style of a Taylor Swift song. Obviously, I'm not going to send that to candidates, but it's something you could do if you really wanted to, just as a fun example. We can dictate the length and the format and the context. So I'll be showing you a couple of examples of how we can do this. So let's say that we wanted to use AI to better understand DevOps engineering. I have really taken to AI language models to researching roles that maybe I don't know as much about the tech in the role, and I want to better understand it so I can have good conversations with the candidates that I speak to about this. So sure, we could type a prompt like this: what is DevOps engineering? And this goes back to my very early workings with ChatGPT and other language models. I kept my prompts very, very simple. So I'm going to go into ChatGPT and show you what we would get if we put in a simple prompt like this. So I would say, what is DevOps engineering? So when I type in a prompt like this, you'll notice from a quick skim of the content that I'm getting a very technical answer. And that's great. There's definitely a lot of great information in here. But the problem is, I am not a technical person. I've never done DevOps engineering before. A lot of this is not going to make sense to me any more than it would than before I typed this prompt. So what I want to do is write a more detailed prompt to get the output that I'm looking for. So let's try something more detailed. We're going to give it more context, and I'm going to say, I am someone with a non-technical background trying to understand DevOps engineering. Explain what it is using metaphors. I'm personally a person that learns really well through metaphors. Limit to 300 words. So I'm going to copy and paste that prompt into our language model. And let's see what we get. So the answer that it's generating is telling me what DevOps engineering is with the metaphor of being a conductor in an orchestra. And obviously, I'm not going to read the whole prompt to you, but I found this to be so much more easy to understand for me. And it even broke down the major facets of DevOps engineering to, musicians practicing together daily as continuous integration, continuous delivery. So this just goes to show you how the prompt can really affect what the output is. And just for example's sake, let's try this in the Bing AI chat assistant. As I mentioned before, I really like using this one for research because it does cite the sources where it generates the answer from. So we'll use that same prompt. And it does take a little bit longer than ChatGPT. Oh, interesting. It's comparing it to American football. I'll have to go back and read this. And as you can see right here, this is where it is citing the sources where it is essentially generating this information from. I definitely like the idea of knowing where it comes from. And then one other feature that I'd like to point out about Bing Chat is you can actually choose the conversation style. And this allows us to be able to switch up the style a little bit without having to actually put it into the prompt. Oh, interesting. It compared it to a barn raising as well. Very cool. And then another thing that I like about this as well is it generates other questions that you might want to ask to follow up based on the prompt that you originally put in there. All right, so let's go to our next example. So let's break down the prompt that we have just so that we understand what parts are associated with it. So when I typed in, I am someone with a non-technical background trying to understand DevOps, that's what we call context. We are giving the language model context around why we're asking what we are. And then style, I asked it to explain it to me in metaphors. And then I use the length command of limit to 300 words because I don't want to read 5 pages about what DevOps is. I want 300 words to keep it concise. So let's try another example. Writing a prompt for an outreach message to a candidate. I really love using language models for this because, as I mentioned, it's a great time saver. I have no problem writing a lot of messages from scratch, but with this, I can spend more time actually editing the message rather than writing the whole thing from start to finish. So let's say we're recruiting registered nurses. Again, I could keep a very simple prompt such as write an email to a registered nurse to recruit them for an open position. We would get a very basic and generic and not very engaging message if we used this prompt. So let's give it as much context as we have about the situation that we are writing for. So again, with context, pretend you are a university recruiter that works for US Renal. Compose an email to a new graduate from the RN program at Arizona State University explaining why they should consider US Renal for their first nursing job after graduation. Invite them to open roles on your careers page. Use an optimistic tone. Limit to 250 words. So as you can see, we're using, again, the role command, we're providing context, and we're also using a specific tone, like we want to make sure it's an optimistic email. And then we have the length as well. So let's go ahead and put this prompt into, let's actually try Bard for this one. If you haven't used Bard, I've just personally noticed that it's a little bit better for when you're trying to be more creative. So let's see what kind of prompt what it comes up with. And again, I've definitely found that Bard and Bing AI tend to generate a little bit slower than ChatGPT. But here we go. Dear new graduate name, congratulations on your recent graduation from Arizona State University. And what's great is it pulls information that's publicly available about this specific company and why it would be exciting to work from them. I'm guessing that it's probably coming from their careers page, but this is really great. And I've even found that writing emails like this can help me research other competitors, trying to figure out how are they positioning themselves in the market as an employer. So as I mentioned previously, you get multiple drafts with Bard AI as well. So if you don't maybe like the tone of this one, you can look at what the other version looks like. So it's definitely a great tool for being creative. So let's take another look. Writing job descriptions. This can be a great way to have a starting point as well, rather than writing a job description entirely from scratch. So let's pretend that we are a recruiter at Chewy.com, which is an e-commerce website for pet supplies, and we need to find a new manager of search engine marketing. So for the prompt, I said, write a job description for a senior manager of search engine marketing at Chewy. Use a style that would appeal to people who love pets. Emphasize the importance of being able to execute on paid search campaigns, pay-per-click marketing, and generating ROI. Limit to 500 words. So let's see what we get when we put in our prompt. Oh, here we go. And let's just try ChatGPT with this one and see what we get. All right, and then we're getting essentially a prompt that, is, oh, how funny. They're using a lot of plays on words as it relates to pets. So I really like that, actually. I think that could be a very engaging email for someone that might be interested in this company specifically. And it actually does a pretty good job of generating key responsibilities that would be typical for a role like this. So again, it prevents us from having to write a job description entirely from scratch. We can leave in the qualifications that we think are relevant and useful for this position in our specific company, and we can add in the ones that maybe it missed. So another interesting thing that we can do is it's called chain prompting. If you want to further refine a prompt, we can ask it to do things such as, can you further highlight the benefits of working at Chewy? And then it's going to rewrite the prompt with a bigger emphasis on why they would want to work for Chewy. So that's just one simple example of how we can use AI to write job descriptions. At the end of this presentation, I am going to provide you with more sample prompts that you can sort of learn from and try out on your own. I have some for composing candidate outreach, for researching roles, and for writing job descriptions as well. So that will be in the toolbox at the end of this presentation. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Let's touch quickly on AI within video and what some potential applications could be within talent acquisition. So if you wanted to make more personalized content, you might want to look into some AI products such as Synthesia AI. I have not personally been able to work with this one a lot yet, mostly because I don't have a green screen yet. But it's an incredible capability where you can actually now create an AI avatar that looks very similar to yourself, to the point where it's indistinguishable from the real you. And that may sound a little bit scary, and you're thinking, why would I use that in recruitment? Well, first of all, there's a couple of different use cases for this. Let's say that you wanted to do video outreach individually for candidates without having to get on the camera and record it every single time. If you had a realistic AI avatar, this is something that you could do. And it's something that I'm going to personally look into myself, because I do actually create a lot of learning and development content internally at my company. And if I could use an AI avatar to update the content and present on various concepts, I could create that a lot quicker than I normally do without having to get on camera every single time, maybe do multiple takes with each video. But if you were ever interested in diving into this, these are the things that you would essentially need to create a realistic AI avatar for most video platforms. So you would need a green screen, relatively good lighting, a high quality camera. And then essentially what you have to do is record anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes of you reading a script so that the video can gauge your usual mannerisms and facial expressions, as well as your tone of voice. So very quick overview. If you want to check this out a little bit further, this is our first QR code here. This is going to take you to an article that talks about the pros and cons of several different AI video platforms that might be worth checking out. So I'll just give you a few more seconds to scan this QR code before we move on to our next subject. All right. Moving on, and this article will be in the toolbox at the end of the presentation as well, just in case you missed the QR code. So I want to shift gears and talk about something that I think is going to be more important now than ever in our world, where AI is being integrated into so many facets of our life. We have to understand that biases exist very heavily within AI, even if it's a product that is meant to minimize or mitigate AI. And I'll go into a little bit about why that is. So, the people building AI technologies are the ones that have the greatest influence on biases within these tools. And all we have to really do is look at the demographics of those that are currently in the industry developing these technologies. A report by the AI Now Institute of NYU found that men make up 80% of AI professions, and that AI researchers at Google and Facebook are only 10 and 15% women, respectively. And not surprisingly, minority representation is solely lacking in this industry. Black workers represent only 2.5 of Google's workforce and 4% of Facebook and Microsoft's. So why does this matter? Machine learning systems are created through being fed data, and this can be numbers, images, or text, or really anything. And then AI models are essentially only as good as the data on which they're trained. If the data isn't diverse and equitable, then the output won't be either. So, just to give you some examples of what's happening in real life with AI right now. If an AI generative model is fed photos mostly of people with light skin to learn what a face looks like, then darker skin faces will be difficult to generate as well as identify. Another example, if it's taught what parents or couples look like with only examples of straight people, then that's the only sexual orientation that will ever be generated by that model. And bias in AI has real life serious consequences. There is a technology that's currently being used in several police departments across America right now called predpol, or predictive policing. It's an artificial intelligence algorithm that aims to predict where crimes will occur in the future based on data collected by police, such as arrest counts. The problem, however, is it's been found that predpol itself is very biased, and there have been many cases of this algorithm sending police cars to neighborhoods of minorities, whether there's crime happening there or not. Here's an example within HR and hiring. Amazon actually discovered that its internal recruiting tool that it was using was dismissing female candidates because it was trained on historical data with hiring decisions, which heavily favored men over women. And therefore, the language model learned to do the same. So there's some very real life consequences here. The amount of bias embedded into language models, there was an excellent demonstration of this in TextIO's Mindful AI series. I highly encourage all of you to watch the videos in this series after this presentation, because it showed exactly why we need to be very conscious of this as sourcers and recruiters. So the basic concept that was demonstrated within these videos, it was Kieran Schneider, the CEO, that did live demos through ChatGPT. She essentially asked it to write roses are red poems for male employees, female employees, and then certain minorities to see what the outputs would be. Obviously, for the male employee, it used a lot of gender-coded words like hardworking, ambitious, that you would typically see associated with males. When she asked it to write for a female employee, we see things like grace, determination, passion, inspiring. But then once we get to the prompts asking it to write a poem for Hispanic coworkers, we not only see a lot of keywords and stereotypes within the output of this, there are often things that are pretty much straight up problematic within this. worst probably was the output when it was asked to write a poem for my Black employees. This output, as you can see, is extremely problematic. And the reason for this being is that it's clear that ChatGPT is actually relying on racial stereotypes for these outputs. So essentially, it can be very difficult to eliminate bias in AI, and there's a couple of reasons for that. There's unforeseen impacts of data construction within modeling an AI model. We referenced the hiring tool that Amazon was using that was screening out women. It tried to correct this problem actually by removing explicit terms like women, she, her, but it still picked up on some of the more subtle terms that are used to describe women and gender-coded terms, and it was still screening out those women. There's also a lack of social context and different definitions of fairness. It's essentially the same as trying to teach a human being what the context of fairness is. And just like humans trying to mitigate their own biases, it's always going to be an ongoing process for us to check our own biases, just as it will to check these biases within the technologies that we're creating. So there is no essential solution that's going to solve this indefinitely within AI. It's going to be something that we all have to work through together to mitigate. So you might be asking, well, I'm just a recruiter. I'm just a sourcer. What can I really do? I'm not the one building these language models. We have to be able to do what is in our scope and what is within our control. And there's always something that we can do. We can remain self-aware of the biases that exist within these technologies, as was demonstrated through Text.io's Mindful AI series. Again, please be sure to check out that video series to gain a deep understanding of this. Don't forget that you have influence on hiring decisions. If you are someone in the tech industry that is working on positions with AI and machine learning, we are the ones that are responsible for presenting a diverse array of candidates throughout the hiring process. The more that we can increase representation within AI, the better we can work towards less bias within these models. We can't eliminate the biases, but we can also be intentional about how we use AI. Simply put, the examples used in the Text.io examples, there was a lot of gender-coded language or racially coded language within the inputs. And I think that you need to ask yourself when you're writing these prompts, could the prompt that I'm writing generate an output that is biased? Could I be leaving someone out with my prompts that I'm writing? So it's being able to be intentional about how you're writing these prompts within AI. And finally, if you recognize that an AI tool within your recruiting process is negatively affecting a marginalized group, speak up. There are a lot of products out there, whether they are CRMs or ATSs that are integrating AI tools in order to help optimize the recruiting process. But if you are noticing patterns that affect a marginalized group, it is definitely up to us to speak up about this. Because staying silent only continues the systems that are set up to essentially negatively affect marginalized groups. So if there is anything that you take away from this presentation, if you don't learn anything else, please know that your human oversight is needed now more than ever within AI. There's a couple of recommended resources to kind of take your knowledge a little bit further. I would highly recommend the AI Recruiter by Mike Wilford. This is available on Amazon. It's kind of where I first learned to write an effective prompt. The book was actually written with the help of ChatGPT. So a lot of the content is showing how the output can be changed simply by things like tone, context, and the role that you're asking the language model to assume. So it's definitely a great read. I reference back to it all the time. highly recommend purchasing that. I also took a course on Udemy called Prompt Engineering Mastery, boosting your ChatGPT and AI skills. There's actually quite a few courses on Udemy that are great around AI and language models. It just kind of depends on how much time you have to commit. Some of the courses are 2 hours, some are 4, some are 10. It just depends on the time commitment that you have to be able to look into these concepts. And then finally, I have an AI toolbox for all of you with a lot of resources that may be helpful. Not all of them were covered within this presentation, but I'll show you just a quick overview. I have some non-ChatGPT AI tools that might be great for looking into. There's some productivity tools like, for example, Otter AI. This is actually a tool that you can use to summarize meetings that you have, which could essentially be really great for something like a hiring manager intake meeting. It can summarize exactly what the meeting was about. You can say, what was the general tone of this meeting? So definitely check that one out. There's resume writing tools as well. I've included the cheat sheets that I had within the presentation, as well as some of the sample prompts, so you can get a handle on exactly how to write something that's going to give you the output that you want. And then some additional tutorials and resources, most of which are on YouTube, and then some AI detection tools as well. Obviously, I'm not in school anymore. I don't necessarily have to worry about plagiarism detection. However, this can be a great tool to maybe run your finalized versions of your candidate outreach through to see if it sounds like it was AI generated, because obviously we still want to be human within this industry. So great resources for that. And finally, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I would definitely like to help however I can in your AI journey, and I'll continue to post more content about this as I continue learning myself. And that is the end of my presentation, so I will bring it back to Q&A.
Erin, so good, so good. So many nuggets of wisdom. And I love it that you showed like how different things work, really tangible results, but also really gave our audience like, okay, so what's next in terms of the resources that are happening. And to see it's your dog, right? That was behind you. Like,
oh yes, one of them. There's two of them.
It's so cute. Move around in the bed once in a while was very cute to see. Erin, we have a few questions in the chat, and for our audience, please, if you have any questions for Erin, ask them now. Here is a question: can you not prompt ChatGPT or Bard to cite the source with the response?
You know what? That is something I've never thought of, but you know what? Let me try really quick.
This is a great question, actually. Surely, yes, has found the hack for ChatGPT, potentially. All right, we're doing a live check.
Okay, so interesting here. Let me share my screen really quick about what it told me about the output for the job description that I asked it to do. Okay. So I said, can you cite your sources for above? And it said, I apologize for any confusion, but the information provided in the job description and the benefits of working at—
Can you zoom in?
Yes.
Erin, we can see. Can you zoom in on the here on the prompt, because we can't read the text. It's hard to read.
You can't. Okay. So
yeah, this is better.
Okay. Yeah, it says it's based on the job description and benefits of working at Chewy. In my previous responses, it's based on a general understanding of what the company is like and what they would offer in terms of benefits and culture. It says these details were not directly sourced from specific documents or websites related to Chewy, as my training data only goes up to September 2021.
Okay.
So interesting.
Yeah. Okay. And then someone asked, and I don't know what the exact question is here, to be honest. Do you know your KPIs or have something that monitors this on a regular basis? Now,
Hmm.
a little lost when it was asked. And the person asking it is L with a cool sign of a road. So, L, if you can clarify what the question is exactly, then hopefully Erin can answer that question. Erin, question for you, right? Because you started off the conversation saying in the beginning you were afraid, right? Like intimidated by ChatGPT, the
Mhm.
implications of it. What was the moment that you kind of like that narrative flipped, and that you're now actually presenting even on the subject?
Um, this is going to sound very strange, but it was suddenly when South Park had an episode centered around ChatGPT, and
Yeah.
that was my moment where I was like, "Oh crap, South Park knows about this. That means that this is going to be a big thing in the future, so I better get on board and start becoming an expert at this."
Wow. Wow. I love this. This is such a good story. Okay. So we got to watch South Park, and then we know, okay, we got to jump on this. Um,
Yes.
okay, here was the question from Al. With regards to monitoring bias in the tools, how do we monitor this? Great question.
I wish I knew, but gosh, I think the only way to really monitor it is to be on the back end of it, knowing what data sets are being fed to these models. I really believe that in the future, within HR, the position of an AI ethics officer is going to be a very hot commodity in the future. And I think that
Mm,
I see that being a collaborative role between HR and engineering.
wow. Yeah, very good point. Shanna asked a really good question. Do you think the paid version of ChatGPT is worth it? And have you used it?
Yes, I do have the paid version of ChatGPT. I'm not entirely sure that it's worth it yet. I would say that it works faster than GPT-5, and there's other features that are consistently being added to it as well. So I'd say it's kind of it's 50-50 as to whether it's worth it, and it depends on how much you use it. If you're a frequent user of ChatGPT, then absolutely. They are integrating features where you can actually generate images with that as well. So then you would definitely want a paid account through it's actually through Dolly, which is an OpenAI product. So
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay, 50-50. But also now with Google's and actually Microsoft own AI, right, that are free, it almost feels, yeah,
Yes.
why pay for it?
Yeah.
Um, Tanya asked the question: how did you get buy-in from your team or hiring managers in using AI-generated tools and info?
Uh, by showing them live demos so they can see with their own eyes what the capabilities are.
And here's a statement for you, Erin. Do you feel that AI is going to replace us sources and recruiters?
No.
Okay. And do you feel that AI and sourcers are not going to be replaced by recruiters, but they are going to be replaced by the recruiters and sourcers that use AI?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That
Okay.
is exactly it. If you don't know how to use these to the best of your ability, then it's not going to set you apart from those that actually know these models and can get the most out of them. It's really like with any new CRM or ATS that is the hot technology of the time. You're going to be much better off if you know how to use the technology rather than shying away from it.
And if you would have to put a number on it, like a percentage number, like how much more efficient is your work because of AI and ChatGPT?
Probably an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That is huge. That is huge. Um, all right. I think that's it. If anyone else has any questions, this is your time to ask. Erin, people can connect with you on LinkedIn. For any other questions, we will share some of the links that have been shared in the presentation. Erin, it was so great to have you back again. Thank you so much for your wisdom, your knowledge, and your tangible, real-world examples. We absolutely loved having you here.
Thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was it. It's a wrap. The first session is done, and what a great way to start. But luckily, there are 5 more episodes coming about AI in recruitment and sourcing. And because next week we have Anna Morgan, who's going to take us even deeper into the AI world. So definitely stay tuned for next week's episode, same time, but next week on Thursday. If you haven't already, please follow us on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And remember, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter to get a 20% discount code for TRC that you can join anywhere in the world for online learnings from top-notch speakers from companies like Booking.com, HelloFresh, Miro, and many more. I hope to see you again next week, and thank you so much for participating. Bye-bye.